Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. We'll move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call. I'll start with Jesse Clark to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Madigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer. Present. Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation Facilities.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Barb Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Derek Bertram, Planning Technician.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services. Clerk is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. We can move on now to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Grandma, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 2 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or any time during the meeting prior to discussing anything on the item you have an interest in. I'm seeing no hands. I will move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda as circulated. A motion for same. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 4 of our agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to adopt. We can do them separately or in one motion, whichever the council desires. The Councillor Graves, go ahead.
Motion to adopt both.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is committees and boards. Item 5.1 is liaison reports for council boards and committees. Anyone have any reports? I'm seeing none. We can move on now to item 6 of our agenda, which is our statutory public meeting pursuant to the plan. So I would entertain a motion to suspend our regular meeting and go into an open meeting. Councillor Braybrook for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now in an open meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. And item 6.1, Derek Bertram, can you please introduce this file? I guess you have a preamble.
Certainly. For you, Mayor Lamstead, this is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw B 2014-070 as amended. A notice of public meeting for today's application containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within a 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject land in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must inform either myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed out to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of a bylaw or make an oral submission at the public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Please introduce our file.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamstead again. On today's agenda, we have zoning bylaw amendment 2423 submitted by Gloria Windover for a vacant lot on Barcroft Road. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the property from environmental protection zoning to rural residential. The environmental protection zoning is a result of the nearby provincially significant wetland delineation designation given to Bear Creek. The provincially significant wetland boundary of the creek is measured at approximately 120 meters in accordance with the official plan policy 5.9.8 for provincially significant wetland boundary delineation. A wetland delineation study created by Cambium was submitted in support of the removal of the environmental protection zoning, which was in accordance with official plan policy 5.9.8.1 pertaining to environmental impact studies. The study concluded that there were no wetlands found on the subject property or adjacent to the site, and there were no wetland constraints for future development on the property. And there is a planning report on today's agenda from municipal staff, which is in support of the proposal. No comments have been received on behalf of the application. And at this time, if any members in the public online want to make an oral submission, please raise your hand now, or if you're in the gallery, you may also do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry. Is there anyone in either the physical or virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? No hands. Is there anyone on council that have any comments or questions regarding? Seeing no hands. Thank you very much for the detailed report, Derek Bertram. We can move on now to item 7 of our agenda. So I would need a motion to rise from our statutory public meeting. I see Councillor Cadigan for a mover and Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are now back into our regular council meeting. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Missy Clark, the long arm of the law. We can move on to item 7.1 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, can you please introduce the file?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. There was a public meeting held for file 2423, and at this time, a bylaw amendment has been advanced for council's consideration and approval on today's council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We spoke about that in our previous meeting. Is anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Just make a motion to receive the report and to approve the zoning bylaw amendment as commented by staff.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seeing Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Derek Bertram. We can move on to item 8 of our agenda, which is presentations. We have none. We can move on to item 9 of our agenda, which is delegations. Diane Book, Treasurer of the Lovesick Lake Association. Would you like to, you have the floor. Diane, are you out there?
Yes, thank you very much. I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, and other council members. I want to thank you for this opportunity to bring forward this very important issue of lakeshore capacity assessment. I'm Diane Bogie, Treasurer for the past 13 years of the Lovesick Lake Association and co-founder of the Committee for the Preservation of Lovesick Lake. During this short presentation, please feel free to ask questions throughout, and I'll do the best to answer to my knowledge. You may wonder what this Lakeshore Assessment Capacity Handbook is all about and why it's so important. Well, the Ministry of the Environment, Ministry of Natural Resources, and Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing prepared this publication in May of 2010. Its purpose is to provide a planning tool to determine the allowable development that can occur on the shorelines of a lake without impairing water quality. It is also to provide guidance to municipalities and other stakeholders, and to provide protection of water quality to maintain essential environmental, recreational, economic, and property values of a lake. While municipalities are not required to carry out lakeshore capacity assessments, this planning tool is strongly recommended by the Ontario government as an effective means of being consistent with the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, and the Ontario Water Resources Act and the Federal Fisheries Act. MOE's Lakeshore Capacity Model is based on the total phosphorus concentration or trophic status of a lake. It provides an accurate and quantitative linkage between the level of shoreline development and the level of phosphorus in a lake. In other words, the growth of algae in these lakes is highly dependent on the concentration of TP, total phosphorus, in the water column. When present in excess amounts, phosphorus can cause eutrophication and the development of problematic and potentially toxic algal blooms. Thus, nutrient enrichment is a primary concern for lake users in Ontario's cottage country. Lakeshore capacity assessment is based on controlling the amount of one key pollutant, phosphorus. Phosphorus is a killer. It literally fertilizes growth of harmful algae, invasive plants, and depletes dissolved oxygen in the water, killing fish and other aquatic life. Well, what does that really mean? It means that if TP levels are not monitored and controlled, then lakes run the risk of becoming dead lakes, and no one wants that. Some of you may or may not know that Lovesick Lake is a crucial part of the Trent Severn waterway, divided primarily between Trent Lakes and Selwyn townships, with a wee tiny portion, less than 1%, falling into North Kawartha. Lovesick Lake is the smallest in the Kawartha Trent Severn waterway, with only 290 hectares or 716 acres of surface area, and it's only 44% navigable due to shoals, islands, marshlands, etc. It has the highest phosphorus levels on the whole Kawartha Trent Severn waterway. And for the past 2 decades, it often exceeds the provincial guideline of 20 micrograms per liter, as monitored by the FOCA and MECP Lake Partner Program. Included in this presentation are 2 diagrams, one of which is being shown on the screen at this moment, indicating the lakes, where Lovesick Lake is, and you can see Lovesick is circled in red. It's right at the very top of the phosphorus level count, and the arrow indicates where it appears on the Trent Severn waterway Kawarthas. The second diagram is a graph. Thank you for putting that up. And it shows the 20 microgram per liter horizontal line, which is the acceptable Ontario levels. The graph indicates levels that are above that for the past 2 decades. And this is what you're looking at for Lovesick Lake, the highest levels that are not acceptable. It's on the tipping point, Lovesick Lake, of becoming a eutrophic or dead lake. It's a perfect candidate for a lakeshore capacity assessment. In fact, to further support the need for a lakeshore capacity assessment, here is more supportive evidence. In 1991, 33 years ago, the Water, Recreation and Shoreline and Use Study for Lower Buckhorn, Lovesick Lake, Clear and Stony Lakes by Geomatics International, also referred to as the Geomatics Study, was commissioned by the Trent Severn Waterway. And this is what they determined. Number 1, Lovesick Lake was deemed over capacity for boating. Number 2, the proportion of total surface available for boating is only 44.1%. Number 3, further development on Lovesick Lake should be discouraged unless it can be shown that such development will not significantly increase the existing boat use on that lake. Number 4, as people staying at trailer parks or campgrounds in the study area utilize the water resources at hand, their impact on water capacity needs to also be more closely monitored. Since that publication of the study, 33 years ago, when Lovesick Lake was deemed at or over capacity, conditions have not improved. 2 decades of frequent unacceptable TP levels by Ontario standards has led to frequent detrimental algal blooms, accompanied by large increases in aquatic plant life, further depleting the oxygen supply necessary for a healthy lake. The decrease in water clarity, along with the decline in fish populations, especially pickerel and walleye, is also of grave concern. So when should an assessment be considered? Here are the following guidelines as stated in the Ontario's Lakeshore Capacity Assessment Handbook, and I quote, 1, when municipalities are developing or updating official plans. 2, if significant improvements to road access are being considered or have occurred, increasing the use of residences from seasonal to extended seasonal or permanent. Number 3, if significant developments are being considered within 300 meters of a lake. 4, if significant or unusually large amounts of development are proposed for a lake beyond the 300-meter boundary. 5, if water quality problems, for example, elevated levels of phosphorus, loss of water clarity, or algal blooms are noted. If changes in fisheries have been noted. If cottagers or year-round residents raise concerns about the effect of development on water quality. Considering the triggers listed above, Lovesick Lake meets most of them, and it seems not only prudent, but absolutely necessary that a lakeshore capacity assessment be conducted. So what would a lakeshore capacity assessment tell us? It would tell us, in quotes, the lakeshore capacity model will estimate a lake development capacity and compare its current level of development to this estimate. If the lake has not attained its development capacity, the model will also estimate the additional amount of development it can tolerate. This will allow a municipality to decide how many residential and cottage lots or other users should be permitted on the lake. In summary, I would be remiss in not mentioning the Lovesick Lake Trailer Park's vast plan to expand their current trailer park of 130 sites by another 300 sites. All will have access to tiny Lovesick Lake, already at boating capacity. The cumulative effect would be devastating. Thus, the urgency and absolute need for a lakeshore capacity assessment. As a guidance document, it is designed to inform decision-making processes regarding land use and developments around lakes. It's designed to assist municipalities in understanding and managing the ecological impacts of development. Each municipality has the discretion to adopt the recommendations from the handbook as part of their planning policies and practices, while following the recommendations can help ensure the long-term health and sustainability of lakes. Some municipalities may choose to integrate the findings and recommendations into their official plans, zoning bylaws, and development guidelines. Engaging stakeholders, including local residents, conservation authorities, community groups, often play a vital role in this municipal decision-making process. In conclusion, the Lakeshore Capacity Assessment Handbook, LCAH, provides a framework and guideline for assessing the ecological capacity of lakes to support development while maintaining their health. It is a valuable resource for municipalities and townships in Ontario. It is hoped that Council will support the urgent need for this assessment and partner with the other stakeholders to form a steering committee to expedite this process. We are prepared to assist in any way to fulfill this request. Thank you very much for your time and attention It is greatly appreciated. And I look forward to your responses and any questions you may have for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Diane, for your presentation. Anyone on council have any questions of Diane? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lemstead. And please, Councilor Berrybook, help me out of this. I think a little background is required here for us to understand the context in which this is being presented. There's currently a zoning bylaw amendment application in front of Selwyn Township, and it's from the Lovesick Lake Trailer Park. They are proposing to expand, I think, 40 trailer sites, 28 or 38 or 40 trailer sites at the present time. And clearly that is in the jurisdiction of the Selwyn Township to make that decision. However, Trent Lakes borders on that lake, and we have a large number of residents who in fact live on Lovesick Lake, who will be impacted by any expansion or development on the lake. So it is of concern, I would suggest, or of interest at least for Trent Lakes, although the zoning bylaw amendment application is clearly outside of our jurisdiction. So to my knowledge, Selwyn Township heard this present. They've had a public house on this back in August, I think, that lasted about 6 hours. So extensive public input on it. The council heard Diane's presentation at their last meeting, and in fact has put forth a motion to consider a lakeshore capacity assessment. So that's kind of the background, and I think why it is coming to us as a concerned party. And Selwyn Township has opened the way, I think, for us to participate in that. So hopefully that gives us some context in why this is being brought forward. Councilor Berber, did I miss something, anything?
No, as usual, no, you didn't. So through you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much, Diane. And I know it's nice to hear from you again. And I know I attended your AGM, Lovesick Lake AGM, a few months back, and that was enlightening. And I did speak to yourself and Kathy about the 1991 lake capacity study that had been conducted. Just with regards to your presentation today and your reference to the handbook, the guideline handbook, as to when assessment should be considered. It states there's 7 guidelines. It states 7 guidelines, and I was wondering which of those 7 can be 1, 2, or all of them that the Lovesick Lake Association are looking to a study to address.
Thank you for that opportunity. Going through you, Mayor Lemstead, to respond, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Of the 7, Councillor Braybrook, of the 7, we feel that almost all of the 7 are triggers. All of the 7 are triggers for the capacity assessment.
Okay, does that clarify things for you, Councilor?
Yeah, it does. And if I could, I have a comment, a few other questions.
Sure, please go ahead. Yeah.
Did you want me to go through each of the questions, go through you, or do you want me to just
Just go ahead.
have an open dialogue?
Yep.
Okay. In your report, Diane, you highlight that in 1991, a water recreation and shoreline end use study of Lower Buckhorn, Lovesick Lake, Clear and Stony Lakes was commissioned by the Trent Severn Waterway. The report found in part that Lovesick Lake was deemed overcapacity for boating, and it also stated further development on Lovesick Lake should be discouraged unless it can be shown that such development will not significantly increase the existing boat use on the lake. You further state that since the publication of the 1991 study, conditions have not improved. Increased boat traffic has created both safety and shoreline degradation concerns. It's my understanding that Lovesick Lake is a small lake that acts as a connector for boat traffic from Upper Buckhorn, which eventually leads to Georgian Bay through numerous Trent Severn locks to the north through to eventually Lake Ontario, again, having traversed several Trent Severn locks to the south. Are you able to share with council if you or your association have details as to the amount of boating traffic that travels through Lovesick Lake from the north and from the south connecting lakes, and how many of the boats are specifically from the area in and around Lovesick Lake? And was this analysis conducted in the 1991 study that included the effect boating has on total phosphorus levels? And before you answer that, I'll just say I only ask that in order to establish whether or not the actual increase in boat traffic is indeed from the properties on or around Lovesick Lake, or are the transient, or is it the transient boats traveling up and down the Trent Severn waterway? It'd be interesting to know that how many boats were referenced in the 1991 study, if at all, and the amount today that you advise has increased. I believe it is an important delineation to establish so as to allow for a fulsome and accurate assessment as to what a proposed development's impact would have on Lovesick Lake. So if you want me to repeat the question, I will. So I sort of went past that, but if you remember the question, if you could answer that. Thanks, Dan.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you very much for permission to proceed here. I'll do my best to answer you, Councillor Braybrook. It might not be in the order in which you asked, but if I leave something out, please just remind me. Excellent question, I might add. With respect to the geomatic study done in 1991, yes, there was indeed done. A study regarding boat capacity, and it was done using the criteria that was available at that time, and I believe is still being used to assess boating capacity. And it's a study that came out of Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but they are in the study and I can get them for you. And it was a recognized study at that time, and I believe still is. With respect to the amount of boating on Lovesick Lake right now, we do have figures from the lockmasters at both Lower Buckhorn Lake at the northwest end of the lake, and at Burley Falls at the southeast end of the lake, the amount of traffic going through both north and southbound, and it's in the area of, if I'm not mistaken, close to 7,000 boats last year, and I think it was around 6,800 this year passing through the locks. Now, what those boats do in the interim of whether they then stay on the lake for a matter of 2 or 3 days or a couple of hours or in transit, that information I do not have, but I do have those big numbers. Of course, that study would need to be conducted as part of the lakeshore capacity assessment for the number of boats that are, if I may say in quotations, local as opposed to passing through. But as I say, it's hard to assess, you know, how long the boats stay. Like some of the houseboats coming through stay on the lake for a week and go to different moorings and take advantage of the lake. But every boat that comes through and jet ski causes wake and wake deterioration, turbidity of the water, excess turbulence, providing more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Agitation of the bottom structure. Is there something I've left out, Councillor Braybrook?
No,
Have I?
no, that's great, Diane, and I'm glad you brought up the houseboats, because I know myself when I'm going through the locks and whatnot, I've seen many houseboats, and also there's some great spots on Lovesick Lake that yourself and your husband took me to a couple of summers ago. So I'm glad you mentioned the houseboats because it'll be interesting to see what the study finds if it is completed as to what the transient boaters are contributing to it. And the only reason I'm trying to get a delineation between the two is I don't want to see us embark on an initiative that's only, speaking to the local property owners on Lovesick Lake when it's really not the result of their interaction with the lake, and it's a result of the transient boaters. So that's why it's also important to have the study completed. If I may, Mayor, just to switch gears just a wee bit, Diane. I don't have an in-depth knowledge of the proposed trailer park expansion details, apart from what you and your association has provided. Are you able to advise what access the existing trailer park has to Lovesick Lake, or if they own any water frontage?
If I may, Mayor Lambshead, go
Yes,
through
please.
you to respond. Thank you. Perhaps I could just back up one little bit. Councillor Braybrook, I just remembered an important fact relating to your previous question, and then I'll move on to the current one, if I may. And that was regarding Stony Lake, which is the lake immediately to the south of us. And they have grave concerns about the expansion to the trailer park because they are immediately south of us, and our heightened TP levels naturally increase their TP levels because they're south, so the water flows through to them. They have a very influential advisory committee on Stony Lake, and they have strong support against the trailer park and are advocating also for this lakeshore capacity assessment because it's meaningful to them being the immediate neighbors to us on the south side. Back to your current question about the trailer park. Yes, they do have immediate access to the lake. They have two I'm going to call them beaches, if you will. And I don't mean to throw stones, but both of these beaches were put in illegally without any permits or approvals, but they've been grandfathered in because it was a while ago. They have more than exceeded their allotment for docks. And when Parks Canada and Trent Severn was advised of this, they gave them a slap on the wrist, told them no more docks, that they had exceeded them well over 50%. So in answer to your question, yes, they have direct access to the lake. They blasted an illegal road up the escarpment for access to these first additional 38 to 41 new trailers going in, hopefully by the trailer park, with this change in rezoning that Deputy Mayor Armstrong referred to in her background information. And that allows access for the 300 sites on their long-term plans, access to the lake and the beaches below. Does that answer your question adequately?
Yeah, that's good, Diane. I just had just one more.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Braybrook.
So just for clarification, does the trailer park have any sort of septic systems down near the water?
They do. They do, and the plan is to pump. They're planning to put in a new septic system because the one they have currently is unacceptable. So they're planning a new septic system to be installed. It will need to be monitored for I'm not quite sure if it's 2 or 3 years because it's kind of a one-off, a one of a kind that has not been thoroughly tested in Ontario. The effluent will be pumped up the escarpment through piping. And there is grave concern about that process, should there be a leak, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the plan regarding the septic system. And it will need to be implemented before those 38 to 41 trailers go in, if in fact the rezoning is approved.
I think I can add just a little bit of that because I do sit on the committee at the county level for the planning of this, and all of those septic systems down at the water yard will be eliminated, and all of that effluent will be pumped to the top of the hill and go through that. I think it's a biofilter that has been around for quite a while. It's just, this is a pretty large application. You know, it'll end up being a total of 65 or 70 sites altogether with the if the addition of sites on the top of the hill go along. So that we'll be removing a lot of nutrients from that lakeshore.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions? I'm seeing Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamstead. Again, I don't think the review and approval of the zoning bylaw amendment application is within our jurisdiction. But at this time, I think Bianca or Jesse may have the motion that Selwyn passed, but I think they've reached out, or through their motion are reaching out to ask whether we, Trent Lakes, would be supportive of proceeding with a lake capacity assessment and setting up the terms of reference for that. So they're not asking for financial support or any other kind of support. It's more a question of whether Trent Lakes as a municipality would be supportive of working with Selwyn Township to pursue a lake capacity assessment as a possibility.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Bray.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and to Deputy Mayor Armstrong. What you just mentioned there, are you referring to the terms of reference?
Correct.
In relation to?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I just have one comment. If you look at the graph on page 3, that one spike in the last few months or years terrifies me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of phosphorus in a water in a small lake that has flow through it, but it doesn't have as much flow as you might think. That number does terrify me. We don't want to have a lake no longer functioning. Yes, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, just a piece of information as part of the work we're doing on the Environmental Advisory Committee, which Councilor Braybuck also sits on. We're just in the early throes of preparing a lake inventory database for all the 50 odd lakes that we have in Trent Lakes. And one of the data points that we're collecting is the phosphorus levels. And generally speaking, the other lakes in our municipality have phosphorus levels in the 5, 6, 7, 8 range. So Lovesick Lake clearly is an outlier at 21 points. So just to give some, again, perspective and context, they certainly do have a high level of phosphorus,
Yeah.
more than double what our average is.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen. I see.
Yeah, I would support a lake capacity study that's recommended by the deputy mayor. And I would support, I would second the motion if she'd like to make a motion in that respect.
Are we supporting a study or are we supporting getting ready to do this? Go ahead, Councillor
Yeah,
Bray.
through your comments. I think we're at this stage where, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to be voting on, if we do make a motion on the terms of reference in relation to embarking on a potential lake capacity study. And I'll just further comment that there's many other stakeholders that are involved in this. I think it's important that we as Trent Lakes, will speak for myself, that we're sensitive to the fact that the trailer park development is a Selwyn issue and that sort of thing. And it's nice to hear that Selwyn sort of laid out the olive branch and invited other stakeholders in to participate. So, but I would support as well.
Okay, well, we don't have a motion on the floor. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Let me make an effort here. Thank you. I did have a conversation with Bianca about this because Bianca supports our environmental advisory committee, and we have already heard from Diane at that committee. I just wanted to also point out. The motion would read, whereas Selwyn Council passed the following resolution, that the presentation from the Lovesick Lake Association be received for information, and whereas lakeshore capacity assessments under the official plan are requirement for cold lakes, specifically to protect lake trout. And although Lovesick Lake is a warm water lake, thereby not, do we have this put on the screen, Jesse? This is quite lengthy.
Yeah, may be able to do it in the background. Make sure it's prepared for that.
Okay, I just thought it would be helpful for council to see what the motion was that was passed specifically by Selwyn. So we're all clear on. What the background is.
I think you could probably continue with your motion though, and I think we're gonna,
Okay,
staff will need a little time.
okay, no, that's fine.
Jump
That's
on
fine.
that.
Given that Selwyn has passed that motion, and whereas Trent Lakes Council recognizes that many of our residents have waterfront properties on Lovesick Lake and have a vested interest in the current and future water quality of Lovesick Lake, therefore, we received the presentation from Diane Bogey, and further that council supports the development of a terms of reference outlining the scope, purpose, and resourcing of a lake capacity assessment led by the Township of Selwyn.
Okay. Deputy Councilor Francis, go ahead.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, now we can have conversation. Anyone else want to speak about that? There we have the motion on the screen there now. Anyone cares to read that again or look at that more? It's there, so there's lots of whereases and such and therefores and that's. It's a lengthy motion, but I think it's important. Right? Councilor Braber, you have a
Thank you
comment?
through your mayor. Just one last comment. I think it's important, and I'm happy that it's evolved to this point. And I know meeting with the Lovesick Lake Association over the last 2 years, it's a big step. It's a good step that we've arrived at this juncture. So I think it's really important, you know, especially given that if you look at the GIS mapping, that 3/4 of Lovesick Lake is in fact in Trent Lake. So I think it's important that we are a voice in this as well.
Yeah, and speaking last, if anyone else wants to speak, go right ahead. We have to remember there's 7,000 possible boats traveling through that little lake every summer from the Trent Severn Waterway alone. And, you know, it could be more because you're maybe not capturing them all. There's boat launches and stuff all around those lakes. So it is a potential to have 10,000 boats. So you never know. So I think this is a great idea. Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Diane, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your input and what you've had to say. Thank you.
Okay. We can move on now to staff reports, which is item 10 of our agenda. Item 10.1 is Public Works, and 10.1.1 is Evan Grieger, our Director of Public Works. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Lambshead, through you, Mayor, to members of council. Before you today is hopefully the last update regarding the new Mechanics Parks and Recreations facility being built there just on County Road 49. So projects has been continuing on very well. We're quite happy with, like I've mentioned before in the previous updates, the consultant and contractor working very well, but not too closely together. Things are looking on schedule. We've been very lucky with this weather. Once again, come from spring, I'll carry on through this whole project. We've had incredible weather. So it's been good that way. Little things are getting finished up now. So interior wise, Mayor Lamb said, you may know once you're getting to the painting and doing the light switches, that's when you're getting kind of close to finishing. So painting has actually started, flooring has started starting next week. The building itself is, we did receive our final inspection from the building department here, so that's a good sign. There's a lot of the remaining work is the exterior work, so the installation of the fire water storage, the septic, as well as the paving and the construction of the sand dome. So there's a few little things floating, but everything's still scheduled to be done by the end of October.
Okay, when's the grand tour, Don? Anybody on council have any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Friend.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, just a comment. The retaining or the soundproofing, that looks amazing. I drove by yesterday and it looks great.
It does.
Much better than the concrete wallboard before.
Exactly. Thank you, Councilor. And through you, Mayor Lamb, just to build on that too, it's kind of interesting because all the rock is obviously local. So it's like a local monument almost to sort of blend in with what people are used to seeing around here, and as well as providing the proper separation that we want to provide to that neighbor as well. So no, I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Evan. It's pretty exciting, and I do look forward to having a tour of it post October. The budget, do you anticipate upon completion, do you anticipate it coming under budget?
Thank you, Councilor Braber, through you, Mayor Lamb's head. I believe so, yes, as long as, you never know what can come up. There's always something that could happen. However, we are in very good shape, especially with our catch allowance as well as contingency, that we're going to be definitely within that budget. And I don't want to. Exactly.
I know we're dealing with, through you, Mayor, I know we're dealing with hypotheticals here until the final tally comes in, but it's nice to hear that it's actually potentially going to come under
projected
projected budget, so which is nice, so we can allot those monies to other initiatives that we have.
It's great. I mean, I'm stopped there way too often. I'm sure your people working there don't like it anymore, but every time I've been there, there's been people working, and that's a great thing to see on a construction site, because the larger the site, the more times you get there and there's no one working. So it's nice to see that people are working. Thank you very much for that. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Go ahead, Councilor Franzen.
A motion to receive records report.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, I see for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Evan. Okay, we can move on to 10.2 of our agenda, was recreation and facilities. 10.2.1, Dylan Kosher, Director of Recreation and Facilities. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let's get my little screen up here going so I can follow along. So my first report today is updating our Parks and Recreation bylaw. It has been since 2013 that it received an update. I think it was probably good at the time, but over the last 10 years or so, you learn a lot about how our recreation sites get used and the ins and outs and how people act. So we felt that it was time to update it, include some more regulation. That's really for the ultimate protection of the assets for the future to come, so that everybody can continue to enjoy them. This update also provides the framework to include this in our AMP system. So Parks and Recreation staff will have the ability, through the appropriate approvals on this agenda, there's some bylaws to come later in the agenda that will allow us to appoint our recreation staff as officers to lay fines for this bylaw, and then hopefully parking when it gets done as well. At a high level, some of the changes that we've done is we've included all of our current parks, playgrounds, beaches, boat launches, trails, sports pads, sports fields into the bylaw. Many of them which were not included, not regulated under the previous instance. We updated the prohibited activities, again, the framework for the AMPS bylaw, and then delegated some powers to the Director of Recreation and Facilities to be able to, make those decisions. If we have to close a park for something that we're doing with some actual backbone behind us, rather than, having to bring something that's simple before council to do that. If there's any questions, I guess I should mention that, this has kind of been through a lot of our staff internally here listed, as well as our municipal solicitor offered quite a bit of insight on the bylaw as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Don. Anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
I guess I have some questions about what's allowed and what's not allowed. For example, golfing, flying a kite. I see that. I've seen both on our baseball diamond in Cavendish and encourage it. Are we going to start fining people now?
I think with we're not going to aim to be punitive to people. That's the idea. With golf, it's, having a golf ball hurtling through Sandy Beach might be a little bit less appropriate than the Cavendish ball diamond, as you can imagine. So it's all designed for the safety of the general public. It's the same reason we don't have fishing. You might be able to fish from a shoreline because there's nobody around, but in the last 10 years, we've picked bagfuls of fish hooks and fishing line out of our parks. So, it's for the general safety of the public.
If I may
Go ahead.
continue,
Absolutely. Go on then.
my concern is who determines what we enforce and what we don't enforce? Is that going to be you or council, or who decides that?
Through you, Mayor. In passing, if council decides to pass this bylaw, then that would be council that decided to. If there's provision of the bylaw that council doesn't agree with, then we can certainly direct staff to take it back and change it if we don't agree with any particular part of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. First, a couple of kudos. I love the maps, love the pictures that you included. So thank you for that. I've not been to all of those places, which kind of surprised me. So that was great. The other kudo, you didn't mention it, but I know in future reports you will, that there are actually some very positive environmental implications. And we know that's a new add to our staff reports. But I did want to point out that, clearly we're doing some things that will maintain the natural shoreline features, which we all know is important. And also we're doing some things in the bylaws that prevent chemicals and pollutants from getting into the water. So I think that's great. Thank you for that. The questions, one is out of sheer ignorance, and I should know. Do we do water testing? And secondly, do we have life-saving and/or first aid equipment on site?
Through you, Mayor. For the first question, water testing is done by Peterborough Public Health. So if you quick Google Peterborough Public Health Public Beach Testing, bring up their website, it'll tell you each beach within the county that they do test, the frequency they test them, and what the last result was and the date. And for your second question, sorry, I just drew a blank. What was your second?
Life-saving equipment,
Life-saving
first aid kit.
Through you, Mayor, we do not have any life-saving equipment. We have the closest thing we've got is we've got a sign that says, in case of emergency, call 911, and the address is posted at all of the more popular beaches and sites, especially when you're not out at the road to see the municipal address. We don't have them there, particularly because we don't know what people are trained to. Vandalism is a very big thing, especially in the park in Buckhorn and at Sandy Beach, as things do not stay there long. They're destroyed quite readily. If that's something that council wants, we can certainly look into options for that as well. But definitely encouraged to call emergency services.
Go ahead.
Through Maryland said, I don't want to, but I will put our fire chief on the spot. From an emergency services perspective, are we taking adequate measures from a safety perspective with that?
Through your mayor, Lam said,
Absolutely.
us as the fire service or as Parks and Rec?
No, from an emergency services perspective, somebody's drowned, somebody gets hurt, somebody, slashes their foot on a piece of glass. you know, should we be in the position of having something more immediate on site? Or are you satisfied that we've taken adequate measures in the event that any of those things would happen?
Through you, Mayor Lamb, I don't want to speak at a turn towards Dylan's department, but we have resources if we're called, like Dylan's taken those precautions, protect the municipality. But I would think that would be definitely a question for our legal team. And I think we're opening ourselves up no matter what we invite people to.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of what we're willing to, what level of risk we're willing to take as a municipality would be the question. So I think that would be more suited for legal.
It's my only concern always is if you put stuff there that people forget to phone 911 and the injury gets worse and worse and worse, and then someone has a problem that should have been dealt with an emergency service, and it isn't. So it's always a concern.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor Lynch, just as well, I don't know if council thinks it's an important enough issue for us to follow up, or because we haven't had any experiences, and so maybe I'll hold on to it for right now, but I think I'd be interested
Good things to consider, yeah.
if other councilors
Okay.
think we should pursue it.
Okay, Councillor Franz, go ahead.
Yeah, just comment through you, just Ms. Armstrong's comments. I believe it's implied that when you're using our beaches, it is use at own risk, because we certainly couldn't afford to man all of our beaches in the summertime.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Dylan. Sorry.
Through you, Mayor Lansett, to follow up on Deputy Mayor Armstrong's comments there. We are hopefully going to do a few road tours to some neighboring municipalities and some of their beaches and parks and kind of see what we can draw from what they're doing and bring back here for good ideas, is hopefully before the snow starts to fly. So we could make that a item of note to see what other municipalities do and at least have that in our back pocket for the future.
Perfect. Yep,
Great.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Thank you, through Mayor. Just a quick comment to thank Dylan, you and your department for updating this item from 2013 and to bring it in alignment with our AMPS program. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Okay, any other comments or questions? I just have one question about KK, which is tether launch any fixed wing aircraft. I don't know if that's more of a federal jurisdiction if we start to try and give a ticket for that. I know it would be dangerous to slide a fixed wing aircraft onto the beach at Sandy Beach, but
Good luck.
is that an issue that we are allowed to even pursue as an AMPS? It just struck me as unusual to have that in there.
Sure.
Fixed wing.
Through you, Mayor. Our lawyers certainly didn't flag that. Likely came from a neighboring bylaw. I would think tethering to our land, though, is that we could, because it is our land, we could absolutely fine for that.
Okay. Just popped out at me. Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Franz, go ahead.
Just one comment. You mentioned in there about domestic animals, so that wouldn't include any exotic breeds? Somebody couldn't bring their monkey to the beach or take their snakes for a walk or?
Slither.
Through you, Mayor. I'll have to look at the definition of a domestic animal this year.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Sorry,
Go
through you.
ahead.
It is domesticated animal is any species that has been domesticated by human and is controlled by a person with their survival depending on the owner. So a monkey
anything
in somebody's control.
Okay.
The wild monkey and wildlife.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Any other comments or questions? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Let's see, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lansett. I'll make the motion that council receives the report, that we support the updated Parks and Rec bylaw, and further that we support bylaws to amend our administrative monetary penalty system bylaw to include penalties for the Parks and Recreation bylaw and to appoint recreation facility staff as municipal law enforcement officers.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? Go ahead, Councillor Brayberg.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Just reading that municipal law enforcement officers, does that mean that we can, as a municipality, our building department can poach, so to speak? Now that you've been deputized as bylaw officers, could you go outside of the Parks and Rec if you did come, let's say parking, just parking covered under Parks and Rec, or that's under
It's on the parking
rules?
bylaw.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. No, because in the bylaw, you'll see that Jesse has so kindly drafted for me. It actually specifies which bylaws we can enforce, which is the parking and the Parks and Recreation bylaw. So I couldn't go to a fireworks complaint or a dog at large complaint that wouldn't be within our scope.
But you do, through you, Mayor, you do cover off the parking? and
Yes,
all of it?
parking because of the parking
That's
laws.
great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cavan, go ahead.
Through your mayor, I would comment that I am generally in favor of this. I have some misgivings though about what we're not allowing and the potential for abuse depending on who's enforcing the rules. That's my concern.
Thank you very much. And I think this is mostly going to be complaint driven, I'm assured. I mean, you're not driving around looking for someone. It's, you have a lot to do. There's a lot on that plate.
Piece in the baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Through Mary, like I tried to explain earlier, is it's, about asking nicely. If somebody's doing something unsafe in the moment, trying to educate them, trying to steer them away from what it is. Writing tickets obviously takes time. It's going to take time for our bylaw staff here to deal with the whole process as well. If we can get somebody to kindly stop what they're doing, if it's not allowed and it's posing a hazard, then that's the route we're going to take.
Thank you very much for that answer. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Dylan. Okay, we can move on to 10.2.2 of our agenda, which is Dylan Koch, our Director of Recreation and Facilities. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Sure. Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Before you have a report that is requesting some funds and a change of how we display our advertising at the Buckhorn Sports Pad. So for those of you who are on council, in 2019, we redid the Cavendish pad and we put in fiberglass boards there, and we've had pretty good results with them. We did a quick little inspection last week and we don't have any damaged boards. What we do find in Buckhorn though, because they're a high density polyethylene board, and what it's been explained to me by the manufacturer is that it expands at a rate much different than the aluminum that's attached to. And so it splits quite a bit. So every year we're replacing a lot of boards. We have been using boards that were just in stock from past purchases up until this point now. Now I'm at the point I need to purchase new boards. So I'd like to spend the money on something that's going to last us a little more long term. So what the ask is I'd like to replace all of the boards that need to be replaced this year. I believe the figure was 13 that are in need of immediate replacement. As well as right now our advertising is in behind the sheet of Lexan. So there's Lexan is screwed to the plastic board, which is then screwed to the frame. They all expand at different rates and they all crack and they all break down. So generally when the Lexan has to come off, everything has to go. We did a bit of research and spoke with a local supplier, and we can get a decal that would be mounted to the outside of the glass, up at the top 2 feet of the glass. So glass generally is about 5 feet high there. So even if somebody was standing there, they've still got 3 feet of viewing space above the board. So lots of room to look through. Not to mention we would keep it away from the player side where people are playing. On the outside, so it's not damaged by pucks and whatnot due to the inside play. The decals would be obviously a lot less expensive. They're about half the price, I want to say here. We're spending about $150 now, and it was $70 for the decal. So keeping our advertising the same, we're able to put more of that money in the municipality's pocket rather than spending it on replacements. So initial ad, they pay for basically the initial ad and the artwork. And then they pay an annual fee of, Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $250. So if we were to fill all of our rink boards, we'd get about $10,000 a year. We've been slowly seeing a decrease in that, and we're around that $7,000 mark now that we're bringing in. So, you know, beating the pavements can be part of it, looking for some more advertisers, but as well, just being able to put more of those funds that we collect back in the municipality's pocket kind of makes it a little bit more effective. So the goal would be that we replace all the boards that need replaced, remove all of the Lexan, all of the existing ads, purchase new ads, put them up top of the boards, and then that way we create a smooth playing surface. So the reason to do them all the ads at once now is because there's, I don't have an exact figure, but many more holes had to be drilled in to keep the Lexan all flat so it doesn't bubble as the heat kind of expands and contracts. So we're putting a lot more holes in the boards. I don't want to do that to our new boards. I want to keep the holes to just what is required to fix it to the frame. So we're not turning them into Swiss cheese. So that's why the ask to do it all now. So ultimately, the ask is for approximately $15,000 to be drawn from the sports pad reserve, which has a budget or a remaining balance of $63,000 currently for this. And then moving forward in future years is staff would include a budget line item to replace approximately that 10 to 15 board amount per year until they were all done.
Okay, thank you very much. Dylan, any other comments or questions? My question about glass decals is kind of silly sounding now that you explained it. I was thinking we were going to make a decal out of glass and put it on the, didn't make any sense. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, first of all, through you, Mayor, I was in there this morning and looked around, and I was shocked at how many of the boards were cracked and damaged. One of the major concerns I have is, do you think that we'd have a usable ice surface in there for more than a week or two in the winter?
Through you, Mayor, I certainly can't make promises for the weather. I know the last few years, it's been on a bit of a decline. I think we've definitely been maintaining more than a couple weeks time.
Yeah.
This year we did put in some polymeric sand in the cracks, saw cuts there to hopefully help keep the water in, as well as we're looking into a sealant to bond between the lower part of the board. So even if it does melt, we don't lose all the water at the side. That's the main problem, is when it melts, you lose it out the seams around the side. So we're working on solutions with that. The tarp that was put down the last couple of years, not the best idea, but we tried it.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's the reality of a natural ice arena in this day and age.
And there's many different other sports and things going on there, so it's not just that. Go ahead, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just follow-up question is, if we can't maintain the ice surface in that arena, we're going to have a harder time finding advertisers that are willing to put their money into the boards.
Through you, Mayor, that could be quite possible. I would say the busiest time for that rink is the summertime, though.
Yeah.
Pickleball in there is, I don't know how to describe it other than insane. They're there 5 days a week for 4 hours a day.
Okay.
Something we should try to get numbers on. I think the pickleball and the arena in the fairgrounds, like they had 400 people in a few months playing pickleball. Like, it's a lot of people. That's per game, like per person. A lot of people playing pickleball. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Thank you, through Mayor. Just a couple of comments and a question. Question is, I don't know if we're able to boost up that advertising from 7,000, get it back up to the 10,000. Are we able to advertise on our website that we're looking for sponsors for the rink? I don't know if there's any bylaw that prevents that. I don't know. Sorry to put it. I don't know who that question would be best answered by, so I'm not sure.
Okay, that's a good question. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, through you. I don't know if I could answer that today. We could check into it for sure. I would think that's a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Please do, Donald. That's great. Councilor Braber.
And just through your mayor, comment on the heels of Councilor Franzen's comments. Over the last year and a bit, 2 years, I have had a lot of feedback as to having, more ice time, leading to refrigerated rink that would allow for a consistent, ice pad. And I know driving by almost every day, seeing the green flag or the red flag up and whatnot, and whenever the green flag's up, the parking lot's full. And just the feedback, it's the old adage, right? If you build it, they will come. It's not a trick. When you're trying to get the numbers of, well, it's not being used a lot, it's not being used because it's so inconsistent. So people just look for other activities to do. But if it is consistent, that would bring the opportunity for, a possible men's league to come in and, be in an outdoor capacity. So, I mean, it's a good opportunity. And I know prior to this council, I know it was a hot button topic as far as the Buckhorn Community Center, and I know a study was done as far as the costing for refrigerated ice pad that would take some of the property of the Buckhorn Community Center. But I mean, I think it's something not for today, obviously, but something that we should put our mind to, and collaborating and partnering with the BCC and see what their appetite is as far as the potential for refrigeration for the rink, that sort of thing. So that was just a comment on the heels of Councilor Franzen.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Any other comments or questions? We have a number in a second. No? Anyone prepared to make a motion? Seeing no hands. Okay, Councilor Franzen, go ahead.
I'll make a motion in support of the recommendation.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councilor Braybrook for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Dylan. We can move on to 10.2.3 of our agenda, which is Dylan Kosher, Director of Recreation and Facilities. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council again. Hopefully my last ask for today. Council will recall from our last budget cycle that we put in a budget request for a new mower, which we have purchased, as well as a leaf vacuum was included in that. After doing a bit of research, a bit more research, I should say, I don't think it was going to be right for our needs. It wasn't going to be effective in how it operated with our mower. So what we'd like to look into now, or what we'd like to purchase now, is a commercial leaf sweeper. It's essentially just a broom and a big hopper in the back. It will collect it. Just a little bit more effective in how it removes the material. Obviously, the cost, as you see here, is over and above what the balance was from the original ask in the budget. So we are asking to draw from reserve, our recreation reserve, which has a balance of approximately $173,000 to make this purchase. As we've discussed before, is the leaf removal is a very time-consuming task, very physically demanding for the staff in a time where we don't have a lot of staff. So that is our ask, is that council would support that purchase. If there's any questions, then I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Dylan. Anyone have any comments or questions regarding a sweep? Lawn sweep. Go ahead, Council Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go
A
ahead.
little bit of humor here. Wondering if we can rent those out on the weekend. I'd be first in line to rent one of those for a couple of
Just hook up
hours.
to the trailer, bring your truck and hook up to the trailer. Away you go.
Certainly support the idea of labor saving.
And what will we be doing with the leaves? We have somewhere we can compost them and make some soil? Or...
Almost all of our sites, they would be left on site, just in a spot that's not on the lawn. There's only a couple sites. Nogies Creek Cemetery, there's nowhere. This cemetery on 49. there's not grade. We can go in the back 40 corner there kind of thing. But that's the idea. Is it's not so much to haul them off site unless they absolutely need to be. It's just to move them off of the lawn because it suffocates the lawn, and it's way worse when they're wet in the spring, as I'm sure you guys all
Been there.
had to deal with before.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'll make a motion to receive. And also a motion that council approve the transfer of additional funds required for the purchase of the commercial lawn sweeper from the Recreation and Facilities Rolling Stock Reserve.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, we will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Dylan.
Thank you,
We'll
Council.
move on to item 10.3 on our agenda, which is Fire and Emergency Services. 10.3.1 is Steve Brockbank, our Director of Emergency Services. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Through you to council, before you have a report for recommendation to replace some radio equipment that unfortunately, as you see in the background, was struck by lightning a couple weeks ago in our storm on the long weekend to boot. But luckily enough, we got it replaced with some loaner equipment for the time being by our radio provider. But with that being said, it needs to be replaced. So my ask is to draw from the reserve for the equipment replacement. And if there's any questions, there's $98,000 remaining after this purchase, but it's a joint venture between myself and the Director of Public Works. He gets to talk about the nice building and I have some extra money. So, but yeah, it's from the Service Delivery Funds Reserve. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer.
I just want to tell you that so soon that role will be reversed.
Hope so.
Councillor Braver, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Steve. Because it was damaged by lightning and whatnot, is your insurance that would cover any of that, or?
Yes, so through Mayor Lambshead, our insurance would cover it. Our Donna can correct if I'm wrong, but our deductible is around $50,000. So, and we all know every time you make a claim, something else is attached to that. So it was the direction that we propose would be the best avenue for the township.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Is anyone prepared to make a motion? See Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to receive the report and to approve the purchase of the replacement equipment using $13,988.27 from our reserve, service delivery reserve.
Do I have a seconder for that? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other comments or questions? You have a comment?
Comment
Go ahead.
or question perhaps?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. In the future, do we have any way of protecting the new system that goes in?
So yes, through Mayor Lambshead, great question. We did a bunch of research after the event. Our radio communications provider, Nexicom, electricians, whole bunch of stuff. It was because of the force of the lightning between the tower and the building. It started at the top and took everything in its path right through the bottom. There's too much for the grounds to disperse. So the building is grounded properly. It blew the transfer panel off the building, wrecked the generator and every piece of equipment in it. So yeah, we've done the research. The best scenario is to put another sub building, concrete building, maybe a little farther away and extend the wires. But I'm doing the research on that now. But ultimately, it's grounded properly. It's installed properly. It was
What
just
tower was it?
the one in Buckhorn, but just above the fire hall. But they believe they had 5 towers hit in the same storm. So that's what created the duration of internet outages.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Now's the time. I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Steve Brockbank.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to item 10.4 of our agenda, which is building and planning. 10.4.1 is Derek Birchman, our planning technician. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. As per the report before you, owners Wayne and Marilyn Bonner have made a request for the lifting of 1-foot reserve on Adwina Drive as per a condition of lot creation for file B3123. The purpose of the lifting of the 1-foot hold is for legal access to the proposed lot. And a bylaw has been attached to today's agenda for council's consideration as per the recommendations within the report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments of council? I'm seeing none. Anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to receive and approve the bylaw to lift the 0.3 meter reserve.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councilor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Eric, we can move on now to 10.4.2 of our agenda, which is the Bell Harbor. Our planner, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Lambshead, this report addresses a number of consequential amendments required to pre-consultation and site plan control bylaws resulting from Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, and corresponding changes to the Planning Act. The refund of fee provisions is repealed. However, timelines for making decisions on Planning Act applications continue to remain in effect. For zoning bylaw amendments and lifting of holding provisions, it is a 90-day provision in which to make a decision on an application. For an official plan amendment, it is 120 days. Site plan is at 60 days, and draft plan of subdivision and condominium is 180 days. Mandatory pre-consultation is no longer required, and instead, an optional pre-consultation has been introduced. In absence of a formal pre-consultation meeting, planning staff will continue to discuss the application with municipal staff and external agencies that may have an interest when it is determined that the proposed development would benefit from preliminary input and determination of the required studies for Planning Act application submission. Planning staff will continue to inform the applicant of the necessary studies required to deem an application complete. Staff are not recommending any changes to the requirement for peer review of technical studies prior to the submission of a complete application. This ensures that development applications are fully vetted and ready for the public consultation process. Just to identify the importance of a peer review in the public process, a peer review is an independent assessment of a study by another expert in the same field. It is used to validate the research and methods that were used in the preparation of the study. Peer reviews also ensure that the recommendations are acceptable and appropriate and serves as a form of quality assurance before a decision can be made on an application. Typically, municipal planning departments don't have these experts on staff, such as a hydrologist reviewing a hydrogeological study. The peer reviewer ensures the study meets all applicable regulations and that the appropriate testing or modeling is complete. The job of a peer reviewer is to look out for the interests of the public and the municipality. Therefore, it's being recommended that council receive the report from the planner regarding amendments resulting from Bill 185 for information, and further that the bylaw to amend the municipality's pre-consultation bylaw, which is on today's agenda, is there for council approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Is there anyone on council that have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. And thanks, Adele, for answering some of the questions I had about timelines and so forth. So I'll make the motion that council receive the report and that the bylaw to amend the pre-consultation bylaw, I guess we support and later we'll approve it.
Absolutely. Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Seeing Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I am seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Adele Arbor, our planner. We can move on now to item 10.4.3 of our agenda, which is Barbara Waldron, our Director of Building and Planning, CBO. Would you like to speak to this item, please, Barbara?
Through you, Mayor Lambshead. Staff have been working through the developer's registered planner, Gary Bell, on the completion of all the sections of the subdivision agreement for Granite Ridge Phase 1. As of September 6, 2024, all the requirements have been met and the municipality is now in the position to sign off on the completion of Granite Ridge Phase 1 subdivision agreement and return any retained deposit funds to the developer. Therefore, it is staff recommendation that council receive the report from Barbara Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, Chief Building Official, regarding the final approval for all conditions met for the Granite Ridge Phase 1 subdivision agreement approved under Bylaw 2008-103 for information, and further that council deem Granite Ridge Phase 1 subdivision complete and authorize the CAO/treasurer to release any deposits and the letter of credit amounts being held as per the subdivision agreement.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. Is there anyone on council have any comments or questions? None. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? I can see Councillor Cadigan for a mover.
I move that council receive the report and deem Granite Ridge Phase 1 complete.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Barbara Waldron. We can move on now to item 10.5 of our agenda, which is finance. We have none. 10.6, administration. We have none. 10.7, this is corporate services. We have none. And we can move on to item 11, which is correspondence for information, which we do not have any today. So we move on to item 12 of our agenda, which is correspondence for action. Several in there. We can do them all at once, or we can speak at them individually if we so desire. Councillor Franzen, go
I'd
ahead.
like to speak at them individually.
Okay.
I do support 12.1.
Okay.
On improvement for the municipal code and conduct and enforcement.
Okay. How would you like to make that a motion?
I'd make that motion.
Okay. What exactly was the motion? I missed the first couple.
To support the motion from the city of Bradford.
Okay.
On the improved municipal codes of conduct and enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I think it's important that councillors support staff and make staff's job as easy as possible. And if there is harassment, it should be dealt with.
Of any form, yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other comments? I'm seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I understand the spirit of this. There are a lot of mechanisms in place already that does provide protections and whatnot. I understand that.
Okay, any other comments? I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on now to item 12.2 of our agenda. Would anyone like to speak to this or make a motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to, I'm losing my page, 12.3 of our agenda. Would anyone like to speak to that item? Seeing none. Go ahead,
Motion
Councillor.
to receive.
Motion to receive. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to 12.4 of our agenda, which is World Animal Protection. Would you like to speak to that item? I see Councillor Franzen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. Actually, I was at the booth at AMO and they gave me the motion and I read it and I support it. I think that we have to protect species and I think we have to protect visitors and I think that these animals should be well taken care of and there should be some sort of regulations. So I support that motion.
Okay, thank you very much for your motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Calling for a seconder. I'm seeing none. I will second that motion. Because we do need regulations. Some of these roadside zoos have absolutely no regulations. So.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I just want to relate to a story. When I was 7 or 8 years old, went to Riverside Zoo in Toronto, a bus from school, very small school. And there was this tiger in a 12-foot cage that was walking around that cage all day. I felt so sorry for that animal that affected me for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're sharing those species. We share this planet with these species. The best location for these animals is in their natural habitat. But if they're not in their natural habitat, they should be well cared for. It's a kind of an emotional issue for me.
Thank you very much, Councillor Franzen. Me as well. Okay, any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Franzen. We can move on to item 12.5 of our agenda, which is the Township of Springwater. Does anyone like to speak to this item? Seeing none, is anyone prepared to make a motion? See, Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? I see Councillor Cadigan, the seconder. Any conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 13 now of our agenda, which is bylaws. Item 13.1 is bylaws on the agenda memorandum. And I think Jesse Clark, our clerk, would you like to speak to that item?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lamshead. There's one bylaw on today's agenda that didn't have a corresponding staff report or public meeting. That's B 2024-69, which is a zoning bylaw amendment for 2417 Tekesi. A public meeting was held on August 6th and staff were directed to prepare a bylaw to be brought forward for adoption at the September 3rd meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can do all these in one motion or we can do them separately as it's the desire of council. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
I would make a motion to approve all the bylaws on the agenda.
Okay. And I see Councillor Gadigan for a seconder. Any conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 14 of our agenda, which is business arising out of a previous meeting. Item 14.1, Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you. So at the April 16, 2024 regular meeting, council supported a draft short-term rental accommodation licensing bylaw presented by the short-term rental working group and directed that staff proceed with a public consultation process on the draft bylaw. The municipality proceeded with public consultation with 160 people providing input through the website and 50 through delegations at 2 public meetings. The working group is continuing to consider all of the public input received, including any recommended changes in dealing with short-term rentals and required resources for any recommended options. It is the plan of the short-term rental working group to present an updated report to council for consideration at the November 5th, 2024 meeting, which will include potential options moving forward and a recommendation from the group for council consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna Taggart, for our update. Good to hear we're looking at everything that come in. And that's a lot, 160 and 50. A lot of comments. Thank you. I don't think we need a motion to do that. No, okay, we can move on to item 15 of our agenda, which is a notice of motion. We don't have a notice of motion to bring forward. I'm seeing none. We can move on to item 16 of our agenda, which is information items. Does anyone have any information items today? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamson. I should probably just update council on the library situation. We've had a posting. We do have an interim CEO for a couple of months, and there was a posting that went up on LinkedIn, several library alumni boards, and other professional platforms for a permanent CEO. So those are closing within a week or two, I believe. And then there is an interview committee that will be interviewing the candidates, and we will go from there.
Excellent. Is there much interest? That was my question.
Not so far, is the short answer.
Okay. That's sad. Okay, thank you very much for the update. Any other information items? I'm seeing none. We can move on to item 17 of our agenda, which is a closed meeting. I would entertain a motion to go into closed for the Ontario Municipal Acts. Okay, I'll take the motion first. Go ahead, Councillor Cat.
I'll still move.
And I have a seconder for that motion. Be Councillor Franzen for a seconder. And I'll tell you why, and then we'll call for the vote. We're going into closed for under the Ontario Municipal Act Section 239(2) to discuss D, labor relations or employee negotiations, which is union negotiations. And now I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are going into closed. Okay, we can move on to item 18 of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to rise from closed. See Councillor Franzen for a mover, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now back into our regular council meeting. We can move on to 18.1 of our agenda, which is adoption of the minutes. See, Clark, you have some, oh, we can adopt the minutes for you. Yes. I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes. I'm seeing Councillor Braybrook for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can move on a little bit here on that 18.1. Jesse Clark, or Clark, do you have a motion for us?
Thank you.
Suggestion.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. The recommendation coming from close is that council endorse the agreement between QP Local 1306.1 and the Corporation of the Municipality of Trent Lakes.
Perfect. Do I have a mover for that? I'm seeing Councillor Franzen for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. We can move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. 19.1 is the confirming bylaw. I would entertain a motion. Councillor Franzen for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 20 of our agenda, which is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I'm seeing Councillor Braybrook for a mover and Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, staff. Thank you, council, and thank you anyone in the virtual gallery.